Coming up on this edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report, I canvassed this roster, I put on my general manager hat, and I'm going to go through all of the players who the Niners should build around, and then we'll take your questions for a little bit of a mailbag on the back half of the show. Before we dive in, are you forever faithful? Are you forever a member of the Niner gang? Are you red and gold until you're dead and cold? If you still love the Niners, despite what has been a tough and arduous season, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Let's begin on the offensive side of the football. These players, in my opinion, are keepers on offense, and San Francisco should build around these players. I know Brock Purdy has had an up and down year, and his numbers over the last calendar year have started to go down a little bit. I'm still a believer in the player. I think with more time, he can improve and get better. I do think that he has some very elite traits: timing, processing, accuracy, throwing with touch, good leadership skills, good mobility to create plays with his legs, but to buy time to make throws. I've seen what Brock Purdy's been able to do if you give him an offseason with the full semblance of his weaponry, and he's not having to deal with all of this drama, all of these moving parts. I do think Purdy can get back on track. Is he worth $50 to $60 million? I'm not sure if I'm willing to go to that level, considering what I've seen this season, because those players, in my opinion, should elevate those around you, and Brock Purdy hasn't been able to do that to the fullest extent for large portions of this year, but I think that Brock Purdy can be the future franchise quarterback for this football team. I know Christian McCaffrey has had a nightmarish season, bilateral Achilles tendonitis, and then the PCL sprain to his knee. I am banking on Christian McCaffrey, though, to put the work in, to care, to have the right approach, to love the game of football, because this dude lives and breathes football. If you saw his Instagram post, he is so broken up about that season-ending injury, but he vows to come back better. Also, he's a keeper on offense because the Niners just signed him to a contract extension, which runs through 2027, so he has to be on this team. The running back depth, I like it. I think Jordan Mason's a player. I like the physicality that he brings to the position. I think Kyle Shanahan has to do a better job of mixing up some of the carries. Isaac Guerendo, the Niners traded up for him in the 4th round. He's 6 feet, 220 pounds, so he runs a 4.3. And we're going to get an extended look at him the final 5 games of the year, and I'm a believer in the player. I really liked him in the pre-draft. George Kittle, starting to get a little bit longer in the tooth. Final year of his contract is in 2025. That's a player who I'm willing to keep, though, because George Kittle the last 2 years is still playing at an all-pro level, and this year, I think he's the best tight end in football. Blocking, receiving, picking up yards after the catch, the heartbeat of this organization. I'm still building my football team around number 85. Jauan Jennings got signed to a contract extension through next year. That's a player who embodies everything that the Niners are about: toughness, physicality, player development, not complaining, playing the game the right way, embracing the role as a blocker and just as a football player. I think the Niners should extend Jauan Jennings. And he's clutch on the money downs and in crucial moments. Trent Williams, Niners signed him to a contract extension. They gave him guaranteed money. He's still playing at a top 10 tackle level. Domninick Puni looks to be a keeper at right guard. He could be a perennial Pro Bowler with what I've witnessed this year. And then Brandon Aiyuk. I'm not sure he's ever going to be the same player that he was last year because of that knee injury. Multiple ligaments torn. But you did sign him to that contract extension, and so the Niners hope and pray he's going to be able to be that guy, and I hope that he can come back because he's a really special player. The jury is still out on Ricky Pearsall, who over his last 3 games has 0 catches for 0 yards. That's a problem. And Jacob Cowing, the 4th-round pick, back from April as well. But I've seen some moments from these players who I think that they can become something. My keepers on the defensive side of the ball: Nick Bosa. This defense has given up 9 touchdowns on 9 straight red zone trips. This defense has been putrid without Nick Bosa. And it really started to unravel after he got hurt against Seattle. Seattle was averaging around 3 yards per play when Nick Bosa was playing in that game. It went north of 6 once he went out, and both of Seattle's touchdowns were when Bosa was on the sideline. When he went out, he was number 1 in the NFL in pressures. He was tied for 4th in sacks. Excellent player. He's only 27. Takes care of his body. Cares. He's a leader, a team captain. He's a dog. I'm still building around Nick Bosa. Fred Warner, my man's been playing with a broken ankle since week 5. Prior to that injury, he was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He gets healthy. Linebackers can age well. I think Fred Warner can age well. And him and George Kittle, I just can't see how 85 or 54 ever rocks a different jersey. Deommodore Lenoir, Niners signed him to that contract extension a couple of weeks ago. A young player on this team who is really good. Renardo Green, he's been getting some starts outside at corner. He has really good ball skills. I think Lenoir Green, that is your future outside corner tandem. And then Malik Mustapha. Every single game, he's laying a monster hit. That dude plays the game with reckless abandon, and I absolutely love it. Now, the Niners do have depth concerns at defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner, safety. And by looking at my list, the offense is in a much better spot as compared to the defense. You lock down left guard, center, right tackle, that Niners offense next year can be really good if Kyle Shanahan finds that groove once again. And I don't think he's lost it as a coach, okay? On the defensive side of the ball, Jair Brown was good last year. He's been terrible this year. I think that's a byproduct of bad coaching. He misses Steve Wilks. I said that earlier this week. Steve Wilks had a defensive back background. Jair Brown played very, very well. And so I think with better coaching, he can be a member and a keeper on this team as well. So I'm intrigued by Jair Brown, Evan Anderson as a rotational defensive tackle, and D. Winters because he plays that linebacker position with so much speed and some instincts. He plays like his hair is on fire. And I think that plays. So chime in. Who else would you include on this list? What other players do you view as keepers on this 49ers team? Drop me a name or names down in the comment section right now. As you go down there, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so right now. We'll also be live for our Niners-Bears watch party on Sunday. Can't wait for it. The best place to experience the Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy. You choose more or less on a projected player stat lines, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's easy and exciting daily fantasy sports. Pick more, pick less, pick Prize Picks, and run your game. As for some Thursday Night Football action, awesome game between the Lions and the Packers. This is how the game works, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, more than 68.5 rushing yards. Josh Jacobs, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Christian Watson, less than 44.5 receiving yards. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Pick 2 or more players, choose more or less. More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars handed out in awarded winnings. All right, now let's start to answer your questions here. We'll run through these. AK Frost 907, should we bring back Robert Saleh? Yes. I mentioned it earlier. This Niners defense stinks, and a sign of a bad defense, communication and scheme breakdowns, lack of player development, bad on third downs, bad in the red zone. The Niners are allowing teams to score in the red area at a 70% clip. 9 for 9 in the last 9 red zone trips? Nick Sorensen's not cut out for the job. The Niners also need an injection of energy and leadership on that sideline. Bring back Robert Saleh. He's also a really good coach. Saints man, I've seen several reports that say Shanahan doesn't allow his quarterbacks to think for themselves. Is this true? So it's a little bit of a myth, but partially true. So Kyle Shanahan allows the quarterback to make a change at the line of scrimmage, but Brock Purdy doesn't have a ton of autonomy to do that because the thought process from Shanahan is that he has answers built within the play. The issue is that his play calls haven't been good enough and the answers haven't been there. And then the other issue is sometimes the offensive line can't change their protection. And so on a 3rd and long, teams will just blitz because the Niners are going to go to the hot route that's going to be short of the sticks, and the opposition knows that. Samuel Crosby, do you think that Brock Purdy is our quarterback of the future? I like Brock Purdy. I don't think that he's in that upper echelon tier with like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I think he's more in like that Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts type of area. But you can win in that area. I think that he has some elite traits. Timing, accuracy, precision, processing. I think those are elite traits that make up for his lack of size, but I do worry about the lack of size, the lack of arm strength, and the hand size is a little bit of an issue. We saw that on Sunday Night Football last week against Buffalo, and Josh Allen, 6'5", 240, making freakish plays in the snow, throwing through the blizzard. Brock Purdy was a check-down merchant. Cerebral Assassin, what's your take on the Kirk Cousins rumors? I personally would not go after Kirk Cousins. He's aging. He has no mobility. He is 1-4 in his playoff career. He consistently comes up small in the biggest of games. Brock Purdy's 4-1 in his playoff career. And he has played some clutch football when it's really mattered. I just think that Kirk Cousins, the best days are behind him. And he'd also cost a lot of money. I know that Kyle Shanahan really likes him, but that's not the answer. That's not the quarterback who gets you over the top. And he might get benched in Atlanta after they gave him a 2-year, $100 million contract. Hugo De Jesus. Keep Kyle, fire all of the coaching staff, hire Robert Saleh, build up the offensive line and defensive line. I think we'll be good next year. What do you think? Get rid of Juice and use a dual back system. All right, so Nick Sorensen, gone as defensive coordinator. Brian Schneider, gone as special teams coordinator. I'm fine with Chris Forrester as the offensive line coach, Bobby Turner, running backs coach, Chris Kosarek, defensive line coach, Johnny Holland, linebackers coach, Daniel Bullock, secondary coach. The Niners have a pretty good coaching staff, not in marquee spots. Nick Sorensen stinks. Brian Schneider stinks. I'm sorry. The results are what they are. They're not good enough. Yes, you have to build up the offensive line and defensive line, have to get better in the trenches. I do think the Niners will be good next year. I would get rid of Kyle Juszczyk. You don't need to pay a fullback all that much money. Black Mask, what's the word on Fred Warner? Still taking those shots in his foot. Still playing with that broken ankle. Still playing with that broken ankle. And as of now, he's missed one game in his entire career. Iron Man. Ashton Smith. Hey, Chase, who do you think the Niners should target in the draft? I think the biggest need for San Francisco in the first round is either an offensive tackle or defensive end. You build your football team that way, and outside of quarterback, those might be the two most important positions. So those are the positions that I'm looking at. Don't forget to hit that sub button. Thanks for rocking with us here on the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report.